Hi, I'm Karl Royle, and I work at the University of Wolverhampton, and happy to speak with you today. Sorry I can't be there in Belgrade, and I'd like to thank Nadia for inviting me and my colleague, Professor Traxler, to talk about a few things that we've been working on. Um, I thought I could do a presentation, but then I thought, well, this morning I just thought I would just talk about things that have been bothering me about digital learning, basically. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is change. So we live in the world of change. The economy's changed, the world is globalized, there's information everywhere, there's a huge human diversity, but education itself is a slow reformer. Um, I think it was McLuhan who said that the the culture uses the new technology to do the work of the old, and that's certainly the case in education, I think, because we tend to use technology to actually to to reproduce what we do already, rather than using it for the things we can actually transform things with. So I'd like to say that we should use technology as a tool and not as the medium of education. So that's quite an important distinction, I think, that we use technology as a tool rather than thinking that we use technology for transmitting education to other people. Because the tool really is how we should use. If you think about in your everyday life, you use phones, you use them as a tool. You don't use them for any other particular purpose. Okay. Another thing that we should be thinking about really in digital learning and education is the fact that digital tools give us a fantastic opportunity to actually personalise learning and account for diversity. And the only way to deal with diversity is by applying diversity. And so I think it's really important to think about diversity over standardisation and standards, because standards tend to confine people and make them what they're not. And in the world today, in the economy today, we want people with diverse talents rather than people that are all capable of reaching a standard and doing the same thing. So we need to focus on individuals and diversity, but also on collaboration as a skill within that diversity, rather than making everybody compete to reach a standard. It doesn't seem to make sense to me to do that anymore. So there are lots of things we should try to get rid of, and things like that where people competing to reach a standard seems a bit weird to me. Be good at what you do, be great at what you do, excel, but why do we need to compete to do that? We might be able to collaborate and still do that somehow. I'm not sure how, but perhaps you can work it out. We also need to concentrate on people. Too many times I hear people saying, things like technology is going to revolutionise the way we do teaching and learning, and technology is the answer to all of this. Technology can't do anything by itself. Technology is about people and how people use technology, and what we've got basically is that people tend to use technology for social purposes. The technology in your pocket, the technology in my pocket, rather than for work or for learning. So our our space as educators is the space around work skills and learning, and we need to get our people that we teach to start using digital tools for work and learning, as well as the things they use for social purposes. Okay. There's also this thing about power and control. UK is a democracy, and I think Serbia is a democracy. In fact, I'm sure Serbia is a democracy too. But in our classrooms, it's all about dictatorship. So power and control is an issue, and we need to think about how we give learners more power and more control over their own learning. But with that comes responsibility. So they need to take that responsibility. So we need to stop doing everything for them and let them do things for themselves. It's a nice word called hoitagogy, which is about self-learning. Now, I'm not advocating total self-learning, but I think that we need to make them do stuff basically, and structure that doing of stuff rather than telling them what to do all the time. So power and control is important because if you take children, for example, when they go to school, they're told to turn everything off, their phones are put away, the most powerful piece of electronic technology that could take you to the moon is told to be turned off, and they power down. They're back in the in a different age before digital technology. It's strange, really strange. My son has the same English book as my mother did in 1947. How can that be good? And to do this, we need some what I call purposeful pedagogies. We need pedagogies that get people to do things. There's a reason for them to do things, real world, authentic things to do. So we need that. We need pedagogies and we've got a great back catalogue of pedagogies that we can go back to, collaborative learning, all sorts of things that we can use that are there already. Vygotsky, constructivism, social constructivism, it's all there. We all know about it, but we don't really use it, do we? Or do we? I don't know. I don't think we do. So let's have pedagogies with purpose. There's got to be a real purpose for people actually doing things in classes or online or whatever, not things that are made up or simulated, but real things, real jobs, real activities, real challenges and real problems to solve. I mean, there are enough problems out there to solve, so why can't we use them in the classroom? So I've talked a little bit about responsibility and freedom to learn. Now there's this guy called Karl Rogers, you may have heard of him, a humanist guy, who wrote stuff in 1969 about all of these things, about how we need to have, first of all, we need to feel free and safe in order to be able to learn. But that also means I've had a responsibility. People need to take responsibility for their own learning, and in that way they get some modicum of control and freedom over what they do. And it gives us also the diversity that I spoke about earlier. Of course, it's also important to decide how we assess. Now, assessment, really, and exams, I don't get them. I don't get exams where we ask people to recall content and then write a paper with a pen to be assessed. When everything's on the cloud and on the internet, why do we do that? So we need to be cleverer about assessment. We need to give people, problems to solve in assessment with access to information. And these are the skills. This is our area, is that area of digital literacy. How do we assess people's digital literacy? And it's not by giving them a test with a piece of paper over a timed period and asking them to recall knowledge. It's assessing how they can apply their skills and also looking at the process of learning. And obviously things like open badging from Mozilla is quite interesting in that way. So we want learning that's authentic, we want learning that's exciting, and we want learners to take ownership of that learning. And it's up to us as educators to work out how to do that. And we always fall back on our own sort of culture and standards in terms of, oh yes, but I'm responsible. I've got to deliver the lesson. But it's an issue. It's a risk. It's a big risk for educators because we're also judged by performance standards. So we have to find areas where it's lower risk, where there's low-hanging fruit that we can pick. So we need to try these things out. We need to experiment, and we need to do these things with the tools that are at hand to help us, that we've got. We can do it, so why not? And too much of learning has been about transmission, about learning stuff, repeating it, putting it in a slightly different way, being assessed only by one person, when we can have peer assessment, assessment by experts. We could have, Professor Traxler could assess things over the internet, because we live in a globalized world. It's changed. I mean, the very fact that I'm talking to you now is because of the internet and because of the fact that I can record this on my iPhone, stick it on the cloud and download it in a day. That's amazing, especially for someone as old as me. So I think learning has to be about creating things. It has to be about producing products, whether those products are knowledge, new research, or actual products themselves. Packaging, boxes, creating something. When you create something, it's great. People get involved. They buy into their product. And it's also about another thing, which is very important, which is participating. We've got to get people to take part, and to not be so competitive, to be collaborative, to realise that we're all in this together. And the way we learn and do things is by collaborating more than competing. I've found recently, I work a lot in developing business for the university, and I found that about 5 years ago, I decided to stop being secretive and start sharing things more. And since I've done that, we get a lot more business because we share, we collaborate, and sometimes we lose ideas to other people. They steal them from us, but we get so much more from collaborating with others. This is why I'm talking to you now, because we collaborated with the University of Belgrade, and that's great. So all in all, I think we have an opportunity to be, what should we say, less dull, really, really less dull in our approach to education, so that education is more motivating. People take ownership of itself, and it becomes part of a creative process, and a process that people want to take part in. And above all, it's not dull. So I'm going to stick up a little bit of a presentation and give that to Nadja as well, and so you can have a look at that probably on SlideShare. A lot of it is collaboration with Jasmina Nikolic at the University of Belgrade. But this is me, and that was me. This is my Twitter thing. If you want to get in touch, that's great. And thanks for listening.